Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're plunging into two really interesting sections of the Indian Penal Code, Sections 34 and 149. They touch on something profound, legally speaking, how you can be held guilty for a crime you didn't, personally commit, or maybe even be let off despite seeing it happen. We've got some recent Supreme Court clarifications that really shine a light on these distinctions. It challenges our gut feelings about guilt sometimes. So our mission here is to unpack the subtle but really crucial differences that shape legal liability in these groups' situations.
Absolutely. And what's so fascinating, I think, is how the law gets incredibly precise about accountability. It often works in ways that might surprise you compared to just sort of everyday assumptions about who's guilty. We'll dig into not just what these sections say, but why these differences are so vital for justice, especially with groups.
Okay, let's get into it then. The Supreme Court, you mentioned, drew a really clear line recently between Section 34 and Section 149. Now, on the face of it, they sound pretty similar, right? Both deal with joint liability, people acting together. So what's the fundamental difference the court's pointing out? What do we need to grasp first?
That's the perfect starting point. It really boils down to intent versus association. So for Section 34, the focus is common intention. This means there has to be evidence of a prearranged plan, a shared agreement between specific individuals to commit that particular crime. Think of it like a meeting of minds before the act itself happens. The connection between the person and the crime is much tighter here. You need both, sort of a physical and a mental link to the criminal act.
Right. So it's not just being aware or being nearby. Section 34 needs active participation and a shared intention for that specific crime. And this idea of an overt act, like a clear physical action showing that shared intent, that's a requirement, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Exactly right. You have to be a sharer in both the intention and the act itself. Take that recent case. It's quite telling. A husband was present when his mother tragically set his wife on fire over dowry issues. He was right there. He saw it. But the evidence showed he actually tried to pour water on her to put out the fire.
Oh, that case.
Yeah.
It really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? How our sort of intuitive sense of who's responsible can differ from the strict legal test. So the court acquitted him because the prosecution couldn't actually prove he did anything to further the crime. His mere presence wasn't enough, even seeing it happen, because there was no proof he shared the intention or actively participated.
Precisely. And that really underscores the burden on the prosecution for Section 34. They have to demonstrate active participation. Just agreeing beforehand, while it might point towards common intention, isn't sufficient on its own for a conviction. You need that participation linked to the act itself.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting then with Section 149, because you said it's a different situation entirely. Here, you could be held guilty just by being part of an unlawful assembly, and that's what legally defined as 5 or more people together with some kind of shared illegal purpose. A common object, they call it. Your own personal intention to commit this specific crime might not even be the main issue.
Exactly. That's the crucial shift. Section 149 kind of bypasses the individual member's specific intent for the actual crime committed. It focuses instead on the common object or purpose of the assembly itself. So yes, you could potentially be found guilty even if you personally didn't intend for that specific crime to happen, or maybe weren't even aware someone else was doing it. As long as you remained part of that unlawful assembly and the crime committed was in furtherance of its common objective.
The court used a really stark illustration for this, didn't they? Like an unlawful assembly forms with the terrible objective of attacking everyone from a certain community in an area. And while they're doing this, some members actually murder someone from that community.
Right. And now imagine one member of that assembly, let's call him X. He sees the person being attacked and realizes it's an old friend. X absolutely doesn't want his friend killed. Maybe he even argues against it.
Right.
But the murder happens anyway. Now, if X remained a member of that unlawful assembly during the act, and the murder was something that could be seen as furthering the assembly's overall violent goal, even directly or indirectly, X could still be held guilty under Section 149. The liability flows from the assembly's common object, not X's personal feelings or intentions about that specific victim. It's quite a heavy concept.
It really is. So wrapping this up, what does this all boil down to for you when you're trying to understand joint liability? It seems to be this core idea. The law draws a very fine, very deliberate line. It distinguishes active participation from just being there. and it separates an individual's specific intent from the shared broader objective of a group.
Yeah, that's a great summary. And if you zoom out, look at the bigger picture, these distinctions really highlight the incredible precision needed in law when defining criminal responsibility. This difference between common intention under 34 and common object under 149, it's not just some academic debate. It fundamentally determines if someone is held accountable for an act they might not have personally wanted or even physically done themselves.
Which leaves us with a really important question for you to think about. How do these very precise legal definitions reflect society's struggle, really, to balance holding individuals responsible versus accounting for group behavior? And what kind of ripples might that balancing act have, beyond just the courtroom? Thanks for diving deep with us today. Keep exploring these ideas, keep questioning. We'll be back soon with more insights.